This is Captain Kyle at New York City Comic Con. I'm here with the executive producer of Man in the High Castle, Frank Spotnitz. How are you doing today, Frank?
Very well, thank you very much.
Glad to hear. Are you enjoying Comic Con?
Yeah, I am. I haven't seen a lot yet, but I just walked through the hall, which was incredible. There's so much stuff.
Glad to hear. It's kind of overwhelming almost.
It is overwhelming, absolutely.
So, Man in the High Castle, the original book was by Philip K. Dick, alternate history.
Yes.
What drew you to this particular project?
Well, I read it in college, so that was a long time ago, but it's about the Nazis and the Japanese having won World War II. And it's set in America in 1962, and so the war is long over, and it's just people getting on with their lives in defeat. And it really haunted me, because I think I was so used to TV and movies where we win, where the good guys always win somehow. And the idea of a world where you don't was so unsettling to me that the book stayed with me. And then I was offered the opportunity to adapt it a couple years ago, and I couldn't say no.
So, are you a big fan of the alternate history genre?
Oh yeah, I think it's fascinating because it makes you think about the world you live in and what might have been. If you look at what's missing in their world and what we have, it's thought-provoking. And I guess that's what all of this is about, Comic-Con and science fiction and genre fiction. It's about ideas. And I think that's why people love it so much, because there's something to sink your teeth into.
I would say there's a lot of ideas floating around here. Yes. So how close, a lot of times due to technology and due to things that are beyond the control of the original author, how close to the original book are you staying?
I think we're very, very close in some ways. I think we're very close to the central characters and to the themes of the book and the ideas that he had, which are so incredible and so far ahead of his time. But we have made some changes because it is a TV series, not a book. So we've had to add some characters and sort of build out the world, but all with the intent of being consistent with his intention. The biggest change we made is that in the book, the Man in the High Castle has written a book where the Allies won the war. And that's the thing that's sort of mind-bending. And in the TV series, it's not a book, it's films. It's films that show a world where we won the war. And of course, we've all seen those films many, many times. So we're watching characters who are watching the fall of Berlin, and people marching down Paris and liberating Europe. And of course, there's a lot of power to us because it's very familiar. But to these characters, it's baffling.
So, I don't want you to give too much away, but is this more of a alternate reality they managed to get something from, or was it fiction at the time that someone made their own fictitious thing, or is that giving too much away?
Well, that's the question that they ask when they see the films, but the films are so real and so convincing, you say, how could somebody have faked these? So, I don't think I'm giving away too much because the book's been around for 50 some odd years, but it is very much about multiple realities and alternate universes. And that's one of Philip K. Dick's preoccupations, is what is the nature of reality. And I was very eager to embrace that in the series.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So with this series, once you reach the end of where the book takes us, yes, is there plans to continue beyond that?
Yes. I mean, in some ways, even by the second episode, we've kind of already reached the end of the book in some ways, because the book is not plot-driven, I would say. And that's what I mean, we had to make some changes to give it more of a structure to sustain a TV series. But having said that, there's significant characters in the book that we don't meet till later, so episode 4. And then there's other big ideas about things that he indicates are happening in the rest of the world that we don't get to in season 1 at all, and that I'd hope to get to in future seasons.
Sounds like it's going to be quite a ride. And my thoughts on not sticking quite closely to the book is that it gives you another take on the story, which I think is great, even though some fans freak out.
Yeah.
Are there any other alternate reality, alternate history stories that you would be tempted to adapt? Anything by Harry Turtledove, Robert Conroy?
No, I think I'll only do this one. I think, it's I did X-Files for a very long time, and I thought so much about aliens for such a long time. I found it very hard to go back to that subject matter because my mind spent a long time in that emotional, imaginative space. And I think the same thing for alternative history. I'd be very surprised if I'd be tempted to do another story after this. And this is kind of hard to beat. You know, I think it's recognized as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, alternative history novel ever written. So I think I'll stop here.
Quote while you're ahead.
Yes.
One last question. So with this series, I would imagine a lot of our watchers are cosplayers. I imagine not too many people are going to want to necessarily cosplay the bad guys.
Right.
But are there going to be iconic, identifiable enough costumes of the heroes for them to cosplay?
Yeah, I guess so, because it's period. So everybody's in period dress in the 1960s, but it's a past that never existed, right? So it's wardrobe that would exist in this world. Yeah, but in terms of the bad guys, you really only have, you know, the Imperial Japanese, and they're wearing the real uniforms they would have worn. And then you have our Nazis, and their uniforms are slightly different because most of the Nazis in our show are American Nazis. So their armband, for instance, it's the swastika, and it's red on one side, and it's stripes of the American flag on the other side. But yeah, it's always tricky when you're dealing with things like fascism. You know how much role playing you really want to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think that we're out of time.
Thank you.
Best of luck on the series, and we hope it lasts for as many seasons as you want it to.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.